Hi, welcome to Empty Nest Creations. I'm Wendy. Today we're going to be doing some Christmas in July projects, and I'm super excited. So let's get started with project 1. So I thrifted this advent calendar Christmas tree. It was $3. When I started taking it apart, I realized that someone had replaced one of the drawers with a solid block. So the first thing I had to do was create a drawer. So we want to have all 25 drawers. Now the opening inside my drawer is going to be a little bit smaller than the rest of them, because my wood was a little bit thicker than the wood that they used. I'm just using a paint stick to create my drawer. And I just used a little saw to cut my pieces out, and just glued them together. And I used a really thin piece of cardboard for the bottom of that drawer, and it works just fine. So here I'm starting to paint, and I'm using a Fusion paint. Fusion is an all-in-one paint. I think this is Bayberry, but it has a primer and a top coat built in, so this is a great paint to use for projects like this. I'm going to put 3 coats of paint on here. So I start out with the paintbrush, and I'm drying in between each coat. But the first 2 coats I use a paintbrush, and then I come back in with a pouncer, and pounce the paint on just to kind of get rid of the brush strokes and give it a little bit of texture. I'm not sure where this piece originally came from, but the wood was a little rough inside those drawers. It was uneven, and so it was a little difficult to paint inside those drawers, but I just, worked at it and turned the little box all different directions to make sure that, that I was getting all the little bits colored with the paint. This is a really pretty color. It's not a traditional Christmas color, but I think it's a Christmas tree color. And so I really like this color a lot. And so I'm just working on getting all those little boxes painted. And here I'm coming back in and pouncing on the paint. And you can see this gives it a little bit of texture and kind of hides all those brush strokes. I just like the way this looks a lot better. So once I get this painted, we're going to start working on the drawers. I paint all the drawers, and I'm using a oh shoot, I can't remember the name of the brand of paint I'm using, but it's in the color Oyster. And once I had those painted, I'm using some just cardstock paper. This package I've had for years. It's a recollection package. I cut the pieces down. I'm just using different Christmas prints. And I'm using the Decoupage gel to put these pieces of paper on. I should have cut them smaller, and you'll see later on that I start cutting them down. Just so I want to make sure that I've got one good image in the center of each box. This paper was really good for this. It didn't wrinkle at all. It laid really nice and flat on there. And I've got all different colors and patterns for these papers. So there's some snowflakes, Christmas trees, candy canes, just some geometric shapes. I wanted it to, have a Christmas look, and be colorful. So getting all of these pieces decoupaged on, and this did take a little bit of time. And here you see I'm starting to cut them down, so that I can make sure I get that image in the center of the box. And you'll see me kind of folding the edges of the paper down as I go to make sure that I'm getting it in the center of that box. so that we get a nice image on each box. So I want to thank you for spending your time with me. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. That really does help my channel to grow. It's one way you can support me in my endeavors here, and it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. If you click the bell notification, it'll notify you anytime I upload a video. I'm trying to do at least one video a week. This week we had Vacation Bible School at our church, so I've been quite busy with work and Vacation Bible School and trying to get some content out, but I do appreciate you spending your time with me. I'm getting really close to finishing up these boxes. And then we're going to let them dry really good. You want to make sure that they're dry before you move on to this part. And I'm just using a little sanding block with a piece of sandpaper. I'm using 80 grit sandpaper. I find that that works really well. And like I said, you want to make sure your paper and that decoupage gel is good and dry. Otherwise, you will tear your paper. And I'm just rubbing that sandpaper on the edge, going in a downward motion to remove all that excess paper. And I do sand the tops a little bit and the bottoms a little bit just to make sure that I don't have any paint on those. I wanted the tops and bottoms to be paint free. That's going to help them to slide in and out of the box easier. And so if I got any paint on there, just rubbing that sandpaper across the top and bottom really quickly will get that off. And I'm leaving the inside of the drawers just the natural wood as well. I do go in later on with just a little like fingernail file and just file the edges. They were a little rough, just like the inside of those box drawers were a little rough. So I just smoothed them out. We don't want anybody to get splinters when they go to get their little prize out of the advent calendar. And so I'm just sanding all these down. And once I've done this part, I do go back and put another coat of decoupage gel on the top of these boxes to seal that paper really well. Somehow I didn't get that on camera. But once this part is finished and I've decoupaged the tops, then we're going to go in and start working on the knobs. Now, some of the drawers had knobs on them and some of them didn't. And they had a hole in the center of the box, so I filled that in. And here I'm using some little skewers with the beaded skewers. I bought these a couple years ago for a party and had a lot left over. And these are the perfect size for those knobs, so I cut that little skewer part off the top, sanding it smooth on the top, just getting any little pieces of that wood that were left. I just used a pair of wire cutters to cut those off. And I'm using a fingernail file to just file those down smooth. And once that's done, we're going to paint these with that same Bayberry Fusion paint. Like I said, Fusion paint has a primer and a top coat, and it really adheres well to just about anything. And so these little beads are plastic on here, but this paint adhered really well. I put 2 coats of paint on these and then let them dry really well. And while those are drying, we're going to move on to adding numbers to our boxes. So there are 25 boxes, and I just have some number stamps. I picked these up at Michael's, and we're going to number these boxes 1 to 25. I had to really look for some small stamps, and I'm just going to put these in the bottom right hand corner of each box. You want to make sure that you're getting enough ink on your stamp so that it makes a good impression, but you also want to make sure that you're not getting any on the edges, those flat corners of the stamp, so you don't, accidentally get ink somewhere you don't want it. This is permanent ink. This is a Stazon ink, and it is permanent. It's just in the color black. And here you see I'm just going through and getting all of those numbers stamped on. This was a really fun project. It turns out really, really well. And what a fun thing to do with your children at Christmas. Each day they get to open a box. And we've done these in the past with our children. So you put a little piece of candy in it, or if you had like a small tree, you could put an individual, like a tiny ornament in each box, and every day they get to add an ornament to the tree. That's really fun. So here I'm cutting the bottom of that skewer off, just leaving a little bit on there so that we can glue it in to our little drawers. Now I'm using a little awl here to punch a hole. And then I'm using my drill. I've got a drill bit that's the same size as those skewers. So I'm drilling a little hole. And then I'm using some of my super glue here. Adding that to the bottom and then sticking it in that hole. This does hold really, really well. I do go back once I finish with these and spray all of them with the Accelerator so that they dried pretty quickly, and it held really, really well. I was really pleased with this. So I'm sorry I'm out of the screenshot. I think this one I do a little bit better. Getting in so you can see kind of what I'm doing. I'm drilling that hole. And then I'll cut that little bottom of the skewer off. And here you see me putting just a little bit of glue on the end and then sticking it in that hole. And so I'm going to quickly do all the rest of these. Just getting those knobs in. The green knobs look really nice on here. And like I said, these were just inexpensive little beaded skewers. I was racking my brains trying to come up with something to use, and I opened a drawer and there they were. These turned out really, really well. Okay, so I painted the whole front of this green, and so now I'm going back in with some Folk Art Antique Gold, and I'm going to paint that star. I use a brush and put 2 coats on with the brush, and then I come back in with that same pouncer and pounce it on. This gives you a little bit thicker of a coat and matches the texture for the rest of the tree. And this just turned out so, so cute. This is a great tradition to have with your family. I love how all the boxes are different patterns. Some of them are, we've got some that repeat. But I tried to mix them up, and I just think this turned out so, so cute. Let me know in the comments what you think about this project. I just love this. We always did this with our children, and my children are doing it with their children. So this is just a fun, fun thing to do at Christmas time. So we're going to move on to project 2. So in this project, I'm using some amazing casting resin. And I've got these little holly leaf and berry molds that I picked up off of Amazon last year. These are a really flexible mold, and they are really detailed. So I'm going to mix up this casting resin. It's just 1 part of A and an equal part of B. And then you mix it, and you'll feel it starting to get warm in the cup. And you just want to mix it until it's clear and then pour it into your molds. This sets up pretty quickly. Takes about 10 minutes. And then you're able to unmold. Now, when you first unmold these, they are pliable. So you can you can lay them flat on a surface and let them continue to cure, and they will be flat. If you want them to be molded to a surface, you can, once you take them out of your mold, put them on your curved surface, shape them to that surface. You can use some little tape to tape them down and let them cure, and they'll cure to that shape, okay? So now we're using some Sweet Pickins milk paint, and we've got a white, and a red and a green, and I showed the colors, and I can't remember what they are, but I'll put them in the comments below. And I've got some, these are parts of table legs that I've cut down, and so we're going to paint these in the different colors. And I did spray these all with a coat of shellac first. I do want to get some chipping and some cracking on these, and so the shellac helps, and using your heat tool will help to encourage that cracking and crazing. And so I'm just painting these quickly with a coat, 2 coats of this, and I will go back later and do a little bit of a 3rd coat. I will say that I'm not crazy about this set. That white one was much more aged and distressed than the other 2. I do love the white one, and I love the red and green one. I'm just not sure that I love them all together. So I may go back and find some more distressed pieces and make a set of really distressed ones, and then make another one to go with the set of red and green ones that's not quite so distressed. But I love this milk paint. I love these colors. They're perfect for Christmas. I think these do turn out really well. Like I said, I don't think they all go together, because that white one is really, really older and more distressed. Now here I'm using those molds, and I'm just using some of that quick setting glue and the Accelerator to glue these on. Now this one is flat, so I glued those 2 on the flat surface. Now these are rounded, and what I'm doing is I'm heating that mold back up with my heat tool. It makes it pliable again, and I'm just forming it to the shape of my piece, letting it cool for a minute, and then putting that glue on there, and gluing those on. This worked really, really well. It just takes a couple of seconds of that heat tool to get it soft. And so I could have done this when I first molded them if I had painted my pieces first. So it helps to think ahead, but this worked just fine. So I'm getting these holly berries and leaves glued on, and then I'm going to go back in and paint those to match. And so just painting each one the same color as the post that it's on. And I'm making sure to go around those edges really well. And, you know, I don't want any of that white resin showing. So I'm going to go in. I'm using a really small brush so I can get into all those little details. These are very, very detailed molds. And I really like these a lot. So if you're enjoying this video and these projects, please leave me a comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts on these projects, and any comment really does help my channel to grow. It helps YouTube to know that people are enjoying my content, so they'll share it out to more people. So here I'm drying those quickly so I can put on a second coat of paint. I put 2 coats on all of these molds. Now I'm drilling a hole in the top, and we're going to use these in a minute. But here I'm using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in Grunge Gray. I didn't want these to be super dark but I do want to bring out all of those details, the cracks and the crazing, all the details in those molds. And so this will just get down into those, all the nooks and crannies and all the cracks, and just bring that detail out. So I'm just using a brush. I've had this brush for years. I use it just for wax. So I brush that on, and then I'm just going to use a paper towel to just buff it off. And this works really well for me. I try to hold it with a paper towel because if you just hold it with your fingers, you can get your fingerprints in the wax and they will show up. So, you want to make sure that you're not putting your hands in that wax. Now I'm just using a smaller brush to kind of get in there and brush some of that out because I just want it down in those details. And so this one has a lot of age that was already there, and then the cracks and the crazing from the paint. This one turned out really pretty. Now this green one did have some chips on it, which is fine. It just adds to the aged look. And so I'm just, I rubbed over it to make sure that nothing else was going to come off. And then I'm just going to coat this one with the same grunge gray wax. And do the exact same process, using the big brush to put it on. And here I am holding it with my hand, like I said not to do. So I do grab that paper towel and buff out my fingerprints. And now moving on to the red one. This gray does show up really well on all three of these colors. And I just think it adds that aged look without being too dark. There I'm showing you can see those cracks. Oh, it's so pretty. Making sure I do the tops and the bottoms, getting a good coverage there. Now those are ready to go. We're going to add some bottle brush trees. Now I picked these up last year at the Dollar Tree and never used them. So this year I made these cute little stands for them, and I do think these turned out really, really cute. Like I said, I will probably go back and find some more really aged table legs to make 2 more to match the white, and then make 1 more that's not quite so aged to match the red and green, so that they'll look more like they go together. But I do love these. I think these are great to add a little height to your vignettes, and to give those plain bottle brush trees a little more glamour and excitement. So again, let me know below in the comments what you think about these. Have you made something like this before? Do you use something else to elevate your bottle brush trees? I'd love to know. Now moving on to project 3. This project is something that I've wanted to do for a while. And I picked up this muffin tin at the thrift store. It was $1. They always have tons of these little muffin tins there. They're just, I don't know that people want to buy them and use them in their kitchen. This one's a little bent and worse for wear. So we're going to paint it with some Country Chic chalk paint in the color Paint the Town. This is a perfect Christmas red. And I'm going to give this 2 good coats of paint on the back and the front. And then we're going to distress it a little bit. But I want to make sure it's covered really well with this paint. So I'm painting this on and then just, hitting it with the heat tool to dry it in between. And now I moved on to the top. I'm making sure I get really good inside those little muffin cups, and giving it a good 2 coats here. If you stuck around this long in the video, leave me a gingerbread emoji in the comments. That'll just let me know that you've watched to this point. Now I came in with some just 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just distressing this, bringing back some of that metal color. And now I've wiped it off really well and got all that dust off, and we're going to come in with some clear wax. This is just some clear wax that I picked up at Michael's, and I'm just going to give it a good coat of the clear wax on the front and the back, covering all the little bits, using that same wax brush that I used earlier. Now I do have to come in with a smaller brush to get in between all those little muffin cups, and then I'm wiping that back. And then we're going to come in with some antiquing wax. This is the Waverly Antiquing Wax, and we're going to add this to the top. Now just doing the clear wax first just helps to be able to wipe this back a little bit easier. I do want it to have a little bit of age, but I don't want it to be super dark. So I'm just coming back in and putting that on, wiping it off, and that gives it a good little bit of age. Then we'll let this dry really well before we move on to the next step. So here I have some Christmas greenery that I picked up last year. It did have a pine cone on it, and I just pulled that off, and I cut that bottom stem down a little bit. This is some flannel Christmas plaid that I had, and I just ripped some long strips of that, and we're going to use that for our bow. And then I found this little gingerbread man magnet. Thought he was so cute, and he's perfect for this project. So we're just going to use some hot glue and glue that pick down onto that muffin tin. And I'm just gluing it in a couple spots to make sure that it lays flat. And then we're taking that flannel, we're going to wrap it around and just tie it in a knot. And now I have another strip here I'm ripping off. And you just make a snip on that fabric and rip it down. And then I'm just going to kind of fold those pieces over to make our bow. And I'm just tying those 2 pieces back over the top of that. And then fluffing out our bow. And we're going to add that gingerbread man right to the top. And then cut those little tails. And I think this turns out so darling. Now I got another piece of that plaid flannel, and I'm just going to fold it in half, roll it up. So this is going to be our hanger. So I'm just going to poke it through that hole in the top. And then we're just going to feed that through, put those tails through there and pull it tight. And then I'm just going to tie a knot in the top. And this is going to be the hanger for our little muffin tin. This would be really cute hanging in your kitchen at Christmas. It's darling. I just love it. I have a friend who decorates her entire kitchen and dining area with gingerbread. So this would be cute to add to your vignette. So I hope you like this project as well. Let me know in the comments what you think about the gingerbread tin. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. I really do appreciate you watching my video. And again, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Share it with your friends. And leave me a comment below. All of those things really do help my channel to grow. And I try to do that with every video I watch, because I know that content creators are working really hard to bring us fun projects. And so again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.